next gland we are covering is the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is located on the anterior portion of your neck. So if you feel for your Adam's apple on your neck, which is that hard cartilage, the thyroid gland is located anterior to your Adam's apple. It's bilobe, meaning that you see one part on the right side and another part on the left side. If you were to look at the thyroid gland, it is composed of follicles. So these follicles are microscopic. So you can see right here, this is one follicle. Now the follicle is really the structural and functional unit of the thyroid gland. So that's where all of the work occurs. So let's take a closer look at the follicle. So follicles will produce, store, and secrete thyroid hormone. So let's see how it does it. If you look at the follicle, it's going to have different parts to do all of these functions. For example, first, the entire inside of the colloid, the pink that you see right here, the solid pink, is called the colloid. The colloid is the area where you can actually store the thyroid hormones once they are made. The cells that actually produce the thyroid hormones are called the follicular cell. So these follicular cells line the colloid. So all around here, the ones lining around here, those are all follicular cells that make the thyroid hormone. And then there's parafollicular cells, or C cells. These are in between the circular follicle structure. So this is the follicle with the colloid follicular cell. Outside of that, on the periphery, are the parafollicular cells, and that's going to be involved in calcium. Next, let's look at the thyroid hormones, abbreviated TH. So remember, they're secreted by the follicular cell. There's two main types of thyroid hormone: thyroxine, which is abbreviated T4, and triiodothyronine, which is T3. So from now on, we can just refer to them as T3 and T4, your thyroid hormones. Notice you see the word iodo in T3. That actually stands for iodine. So one thing your follicular cells need to make these thyroid hormones is actually iodine. And that's why it's so important to have iodine in your diet. You might be wondering, where do you get iodine? Well, think about the last time you bought a big container of salt. You might recognize on the container it's saying iodinized salt. So for us, a lot of our iodine actually comes infused in the form of salt. So we can have the iodine to make our thyroid hormone. For places though where they don't eat a lot of salt, or they don't have the shipment of man-made salt, most of the iodine comes from seafood, which means populations who live high in the mountains might have some issues of actually getting iodine into the diet, which means they can't make thyroid hormones properly. So then what's the effect of this? Well, thyroid hormones are supposed to regulate body metabolism. So it is very important to have thyroid hormones to help you regulate your body. And by metabolism, we're talking about all the chemical reactions in your body. For example, when you eat food, it'll go through chemical reactions to break down and then convert into energy so that you can use. So it's very important to have your thyroid hormones functioning, and therefore you definitely need iodine in your diet. Remember when we talked about the anterior pituitary, you read about one of the hormones it releases, which is TSH. Remember, TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. So when the anterior pituitary releases TSH, it goes into your bloodstream, circulates around the body, and targets your thyroid gland. And specifically, it causes these follicular cells to produce the thyroid hormone. Now remember I told you that the parafollicular cells are in charge of calcium regulation. And they do this by secreting a different type of hormone called calcitonin. What calcitonin does is it helps decrease calcium in the blood. For example, when you need to build up your bones and make them stronger, your parafollicular cells will release calcitonin, which will take the calcium from the blood and put it into the bone. So this actually plays a very important role in children growing. A lot of calcitonin is released, so that way you can have a lot of calcium in the bones for bone growth. Next, let's look at the parathyroid gland. The parathyroid glands are located on the posterior side of the thyroid gland. So this is a posterior view of the neck. Right here you can see the thyroid gland. Remember, it's bilobed, so there's one on the left and one on the right. And see these 4 little golden circles? Those are your parathyroid glands. So you actually have 4 of them. And what they do is they actually secrete a hormone appropriately named parathyroid hormone, or PTH. And this does the opposite of calcitonin. It actually increases calcium in the blood. So for example, when you need more calcium circulating, for instance, if you need the calcium for your neurons, for your muscles, your parathyroid gland will release parathyroid hormone, which will allow more calcium to be in the blood. And of course, that calcium usually comes from your bone. So let's think about the problems if you have issues with your thyroid gland and parathyroid gland. So my mother actually has hyperparathyroid gland. So hyper means too much. So in her case, the problem is that her parathyroid gland is releasing too much PTH, which means she has a lot of excess calcium in her blood. Now the problem is that calcium came from the bone, so then the bones aren't strong enough because they don't have enough calcium. So you can take medication to fix this, but actually in my mother's case, she had surgery where they actually removed 2 of her 4 parathyroid glands, therefore hoping to eliminate the problem of the hyperparathyroid gland. My mom also has hypothyroidism. Now think what hypo means. Hypo means below. So her thyroid gland isn't working as well. So one of the problems she has is regulating her body metabolism. And they discovered she had hypothyroidism because when she was a teenager, she was often really, really tired and she was gaining a lot of weight. Now think back to what the thyroid gland does. It helps with body metabolism, and one of the things is process the food you eat, break it down, and allow you to use it as energy. So since she didn't have enough thyroid hormone, she wasn't able to actually break the food down and use it as energy. Instead, the food got stored as fat, causing her to gain weight and to be tired. So just to summarize the thyroid and parathyroid gland, thyroid gland synthesizes and releases thyroid hormones T3 and T4 for body metabolism, and also calcitonin for decreasing blood calcium. Whereas the parathyroid gland releases PTH for increasing blood calcium.